Hey Ellen, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Nice to
Um,
see
I
you.
yeah, you too. I've been looking forward to this all day.
Me too.
Um, I don't know. Today I was on the phone, just so you know, with some farms in Ecuador, and still
Hmm.
hearing about some of the issues that are happening. There's a little bit of easement, but not enough to like sleep at night well about
Right.
it. And so I kind of felt like tonight's topic is more timely than ever, to just really
Yeah.
get on here and let people know about the options with local roses and working through. So everybody, if you're just joining us, if you're new, I introduce myself. I'm Scott Shepard, host of the Flower Podcast, where we host interviews with everybody from floral design to flower farmers. And I'm excited to have Ellen Frost on here from it's Local Color Flowers, right?
Yep.
And
Hmm.
yep, and I also know, well, we can talk about this when we towards the end, but also about your new short course that just came out, because I feel like
Yeah.
that's important for all of this too. So I'm not sure the best place to start, but I want to jump in maybe by saying, um, you source flowers for people who don't know, all locally. Within what radius of your store, roughly?
Sure. Within 100 miles of our Baltimore store. So that stretches into Virginia, into Pennsylvania, through DC, Maryland, and Delaware.
That's great. And how many different flower farmers do you work with?
Right now, I'd say we have about 40 on the list that we buy from throughout the year. And some of
Wow.
those, some are just winter growers or some are just peony growers. So we're
Sure.
not buying from 40 a week, but we have about 40 to 45 that we buy from throughout the year. So
Sure.
a pretty good mix of folks.
I mean, that is a lot of, I mean, I wish I had that many farmers just within 100 miles of where I am.
Yeah. We've been
That's
really lucky.
amazing.
I mean, we have a really rich group of flower farms in our area. Some that have been here, for decades, like Woolham Gardens and Belvedere Farm, and some that are like really new that, we've just been buying from the last year. So, yeah, this is a great, the Maryland, DC, Virginia area is really terrific for local flowers.
Sure. So, how many of them do you think grow roses?
I can tell you about exactly how many. Um, we have one grower here in Baltimore that is our main rose grower. There's one in Annapolis, there's one in Frederick, and there are two or three in Virginia. So within our range, I would say there's about four or five um, folks that grow sort of roses as part of their normal production schedule. Um,
Sure.
and that has just really started in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. So we
Really?
were, yeah, so we, so this is our 15th year of business. And for the first 10 years of business, we always said we don't use roses. We always tell brides, we tell couples, we tell events, we don't use roses because we just didn't have them locally. And I would say maybe about 10 years ago, a few growers started to try them and really gave up pretty quickly, mostly because of bug pressure, deer pressure, um, and disease pressure.
Right.
It didn't make sense for them. And then about 5 years ago, started trying roses, and she and a couple other growers in our region really started to focus on plants that were specifically well placed in our area, so could handle the heat, could handle the humidity, they were disease resistant, bug resistant, and could actually produce flowers in an organic fashion. Um, and so it's just been in the last few years that we've really seen any sort of number of stems available. They started out, we were getting, I think our first year, Lauren started bringing us flowers. We had, maybe 6 to 10 stems a week. And now, during rose season, we have, 100, 200, 300 stems a week.
Wow.
And so it's not, and I think we'll get into this, but it's not at any kind of level of the South American, rose growers or the West Coast rose growers. But for our region, this is really something that we have not seen before, this number of sort of quantities, so we're really excited. And that was partly why I reached out, because we are seeing more and more farmers trying roses, and more we're getting questions from farmers about growing roses. And I am by no means any sort of rose expert. I never even used a rose until about 5 years ago. So I'm learning too. But I think the more we can talk about it and the more information that's out there, I think the more farmers will try it and more florists will try it. And hopefully we'll be able to bring them back a little bit.
Sure, sure. Well, and I think a lot of times too, when people want to grow roses or they are toying with the idea, they go to the grocery store or they go to a wholesaler or whatever, and they see roses, right? And they're like, well, I can't do that, or that's not, my roses don't ever look like that.
Totally.
Or you try to find a variety, like you see the name Freedom and you're like, okay, how do I find Freedom? And then you try to search that out. And I think that's kind of been, I don't know, maybe one of the issues is that people have been trying to put a square peg in a round hole and trying to like make their part of the world grow roses you see other places. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make, really, is they start there instead of what does well in your area of the world.
Absolutely. And one of the things, I reached out to our growers and some of the growers around here just over the last few days to say, tell me your experience. What are your questions? What are your issues? And one of the things that came up time and time again, which I was really surprised, everybody said local roses are basically a different product. It is not the same product as an imported rose. They're just two different things. And one cannot be substituted for the other. They are just different products. And I even had one grower who said that they were anxious about trying to sell their roses, even though they were beautiful, because they were so short. And the expectation on the florist side was, a long stem, certainly much longer than 8 or 10 inches. And so I think you're right in that maybe the big sort of beginning takeaway is that these are really different products. Local roses are very different than imported roses. And there's probably a place for both of them in florists' designs, right? What we heard a lot was, using local roses as the magic. Somebody called it the magic in your bouquet. So finding places where you can highlight or really elevate these local roses and not have the expectation as a designer that I'm going to be able to buy 500, exactly the same roses from a local farmer. That's just not, it's not ever, at least in our neck of the woods, it's not happening.
Sure. Well, I want to say for people who are joining us now, or maybe have to hop off, we're going to try to save this, and if Instagram will let us, we're going to leave it on the Flower Podcast tonight, so you can go back and watch it. But I do want to say that if you have a question for either of us, especially Ellen, feel free to just put it in the comment area or in the bubble. I will say that I've grown some roses. I don't know if Ellen, if you're a rose grower, but
I have one plant.
So we're really not coming at this from the standpoint of how to grow. It's more, what do florists look like? How do we sell these things? And encourage more people to try it, to take the jump of faith. And that's really what this conversation, I think, is mostly about. Because if one thing that we've learned is, we shouldn't be putting all of our eggs in one basket. And that's kind of what's happened for many years. But I don't know about you, but I do know about you. I know that it has been so exciting to see so many people trying flowers in, like down here in the South, things that we never used to think we were going to ever see, ranunculus or anemones and things like
Yes.
that. And of course, now we do. And so people have
Right.
figured it out. And we're hoping to encourage people to figure out how to do this with roses because
Yes.
obviously they're, no, we can't all live in Southern California and have a gazillion rose
Sure.
bushes.
Right.
But,
Unfortunately, we can't all do that.
but I will say this though, if there are, because I'm thinking like on the podcast alone, we've had Felicia, Danny, and Gracie from Grace Rose Farm, Rose Story, and Menagerie, and there's obviously a demand for this product.
Yes.
Because they're selling lots of it. And so there is a market for it. And we just have to figure out how to market it and what is the expectation. And
yes.
I hope we can talk about some of that tonight.
Yes, I think managing the expectation is one of these big things that I think farmers keep coming up against. I just had a farmer last week who was selling some local roses to a florist, and they said in the availability list they're 12 inches. So the farmer was, transparent about what the product was.
Sure.
And when the florist got it, they called the farmer and said, you know what, I can't use these. They're so short compared to the other roses I'm used to getting. And so from the farmer's side, she was kind of like, well, I told you they were going to be short. And even still, this florist was like, this isn't what I expected. It wasn't the thing that I'm used to getting. And so, right, I think it's going to take some extra education. I mean, there's a lot of education that farmers have to do with certainly traditional florists, but with all of us that farmers have to do. But I think on roses, there's even more education that is going to have to go into the sale if they want to find the right florist for that product, because the product is shorter. It does have a short vase life. On the other side, and they're small quantities. On the other side, they're stunningly beautiful. They're super fragrant. They will totally make an arrangement or a bouquet that much more special, but it is managing the expectation of the florist, I think, and finding the right kind of customer who can really appreciate that kind of product and understand that it is not, it's not the same. It's not, don't compare it. Don't compare it to the thing you get at the wholesaler from Ecuador, because that might be beautiful too, but these are just not the same thing.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's like the difference in apples and basketballs. I mean, they're not even close.
They're not. They are not close at all. Not close at all.
I want to scroll up because I saw a comment I want to read from Quince Blossom Ridge. They need to be treated like a tender flower that you can't ship. If the florist expects it to be delicate, they will have a better idea of how to work with them. And I 1,000% agree with that. In fact, I want to add, and maybe this is the question of the hour almost, is a florist the right customer for this product?
Yes, I think that's a great question. Who is the right customer for this product? Because, can you sell them at a farmer's market? I don't know. We have a grower that tries to sell them at a farmer's market. I don't know if she's having great success because the price is so high. Is a retail florist the right customer? Is an event florist the right customer? One of the things that I heard from a couple farmers that I talked to this week was because the vase life is so short, it's hard to sell to a retail florist because they are putting out a product to their customer that the customer expects to last a week or more. But one of the things that they said about selling to an event florist So two farmers that I talked to said they deliver on Friday so that the event florist can use it in a design Friday and put it out, at a wedding on Saturday. So the vase life is not really an issue in that case. It's a pretty quick turnaround. Maybe it's harvested Thursday night or Friday morning, goes in the design Friday, is at the wedding Saturday, looks beautiful, dies the next day. But what one grower told me is that she sells through a co-op, and the co-op delivers on Wednesday. And she said, it's really difficult for me to try to get these flowers out on Wednesday because they're harvested Tuesday. And by Friday, they might be shattering, dropping petals. And if your event is Saturday, she's like, I don't have any way to get it to anybody on Friday because the delivery that I make is through this co-op on Wednesday. And so that's something to think about for farmers too, is like, how customized can you be in your delivery? Can you deliver the day before so that an event florist can use it when it's really peaking? And right, it may not be the right product for a retail florist, or for even a farmer's market where, again, people are expecting their flowers probably to last through the week. So I think there's like delivery logistics there that are impacting people too.
Yeah, in fact, it makes me think. I want to Red Twig Farms and said nailed it. Farmers have to educate the customer, and I 1,000% agree with that. Yeah, and then Quince Blossom Ridge said it's grocery store bread versus artisan loaves.
Yes.
Yes, totally agree. We have another comment here. It says I guess it's maybe, I can't know if it's St. Louis Morgan. I'm sorry if I'm not.
Oh yeah, Morgan.
Yeah.
He's
So it
one
says
of our growers.
Oh, okay, great. It says our market customers are a little confused. They look too bridal sometimes, and we are growing in a more muted palette for florists versus the bright colors market customers love. Yes, that is completely. Thank you for those comments. Those are all completely valid concerns, and that's the reason why I asked the question. Who's the customer for this?
Right.
I want to take a second though and talk about shelf life just for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I know that when I spent like a month in LA last year, I had the opportunity to visit some farms that grow roses, and especially these kinds of roses.
Mm-hmm.
And and the trick is when to cut them. And it's kind of like one of the things they talked about, because I work with a lot of local growers here in Nashville, trying to help them know when to cut things and how,
Mm-hmm.
and the trick with roses, if you don't know, is when those sepals that cover the bud drop and they're angled down, that is the time to cut. Because if you wait for that flower to open, the clock has already started to tick.
Right.
And we got to do some show and tell here in just a few minutes, because I know you have those roses. But once those sepals are dropped, that's when you cut. And you might think, well, who's going to want to buy that? And it's kind of because it looks like this little Hershey Kiss almost.
Yes.
But literally the next day it can be totally open. And that's
that
why
again goes back to educating the florist, because a florist might get that and say, how am I spending $5 on this tiny little bud that's not even open? So it's, again, educating the florist that, no, this is the correct time to harvest so that you can get the most vase life out of this product.
Right. Well, I know, like from a wholesale side, I just sort of waved the white flag and said that we can't touch this product because we just add 2 to 3 days to the life, and that's just that those roses don't have that life. So I'm always encouraging people to make the jump either locally or however. But I think why don't you show us some of that? So some of what you have. Let's talk about that.
I do want to say something about education too, because like I said, we started when we got our first roses from Lauren a couple of years ago. We had never used roses. We literally, we were the most uneducated florist ever around roses because we had never used them. And so both Lauren and us were kind of learning together. She had just started growing. And what we asked her to do is to do, I mean, we've done it like a couple times a year, every year, to come in and talk to us and teach us basically like, what are the kinds of roses you're growing? We don't even understand, you know, hybrid teas or garden roses or old English. Like, we want to know the stuff that you know. And so she would come in and have coffee and pastries and school us for half an hour or 45 minutes. And she does that when she delivers too. But we really wanted, because it was such a new product for us, to learn as much as we can. And I think if you can, if you're a farmer and you can be sharing this knowledge, offering this knowledge, the more the florist knows,
Yeah.
the better prepared they're going to be to try to sell that product. So I think education is going to be just a huge, whether you like it or not, that's just the reality of what it is.
Well, I think you by managing the expectation through
Yes.
education, you end up with a win-win for both sides
Yeah.
if the other side's at least paying attention.
So as I just said about my education, I won't be able to tell you any name of any flower that I have here today, because here's one of the things that I would say is a challenge for us as a florist. We are getting, so our main rose grower, Lauren, she is amazing. And she, like Morgan, who just made a comment, the way that she is trying to figure out what works here in our region the best is to grow a lot of different kinds of things. And so what that means is that when we get a bucket of roses, there's like, you know, maybe 50 different kinds of things in there. I mean, for us, it's hard for us to keep track of like what varieties. Like, we try to take notes, like, okay, well, there's one light pink one that has multiple buds that we really like because it has a strong stem, like this one. So this is like, I don't know how tall this is, 12 inches, maybe a little more. And it's got a really strong stem. Like some garden roses, you know, are like, have
Yeah.
very soft stems, but this one is great. And it has lots of little buds and it's very fragrant and it's, you know, beautiful. So we try to take notes ourselves, but it's hard because there are so many varieties that are coming to us. And what Morgan told me earlier today is that it's hard for him as a grower because he's like, every single variety is different. It has a different harvest time. It has a different growing, you know, I'm trying to keep track of notes about 50 different kinds of roses to see which grows the best here and when should I harvest it, and you know, all of these things. So we're all learning together. We're all
Right.
trying to figure it out. And I also wanted to just show you, I've got a bunch here, and like I said, I don't know what any of them are. This one, this is Coco Loco. And, you know, like if you had said Coco Loco to me a year ago, I would not have known what that was. Of course, every florist who uses roses is like, of course, you know what that is. So this is Lauren's first try at Coco Loco this year. And Scott, this is actually something I wanted to ask you to see if you knew something about, because one of the things that she told me was that it's difficult for her to get access to flower varieties because I don't know why. So what her note was, I actually am curious about this, and I don't know if she's watching, she can tell me some more. She said, I can't get my hands on a lot of popular wholesale varieties that come out of California and Central and South America or Africa. They might grow well for me, but the plant material is so heavily protected and regulated that I'm not at the point where I can reach out and try to get rights to grow and sell them. So I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't know why you can't get more Coco Loco because everybody loves it.
Well, I know, okay, so I don't know a whole lot, but I'll share a little bit, you know. There, because this is one of the issues in Ecuador, that the smaller farmers are fighting because they don't want to have to pay, for example, royalties. Well, that's part of this whole dynamic, and that all revolves more around propagation. With some things like David Austin's, it may have to do with actual cut stems, like the number of stems you're cutting. But then there are roses that don't have that. Now, like Coco
Yes.
Loco, to my knowledge, yes, there is a patent on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's Weeks Roses that has that, and they're the
Okay.
producer of them. But you can find outlets to buy
Yes.
roses from them, or their roses from other people.
Right.
And you just really, and I say this a lot,
Mm-hmm.
in both personally and on the podcast,
Yeah.
that if you walk into a wholesaler and they've got white snaps, pink snaps, yellow snaps, orange snaps, and you want to be a snap grower,
Right.
then maybe you don't want to grow the same snaps that everybody else is growing.
Yes.
You want to try to find your niche where you're growing snaps, well, that are different. Maybe it's the open flower types, the butterflies, the chantilly. I mean, all of those. So roses are no different. I feel roses are absolutely no different. And I did if you go back on Instagram a million years ago somewhere, and I did a tour. I was in Athens here in Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
and I did a tour of their rose garden that they had.
Cool.
And this is one of those things that I really would suggest, that if you have rosarians in your area, if you have botanical gardens with rose collections, go visit them. See the ones that are covered in holes or have mildew, or the ones that are going, oh my gosh, they're exploding with blooms. Take some notes. Do they have good stem
That's
life?
such good advice. Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I did that little tour in Athens, I'm like, I wanted to go home and grow roses right that minute, because I had hope. I'm like, there are varieties that here in the heat of the South that worked. And it's not a rose you're going to find in the David Austin catalog, or that you're going to pay royalties on, probably, because some of these varieties are old varieties, and some of them aren't, but they don't have the same cut flower legality around them. So that's just
great advice. That is such good advice. I feel like I want to do that now. Like, that's such a good idea, to see what other people in your area can grow successfully and that look great. I think, that's great.
Well, it just goes back to trying to cram the square peg in the round hole. And it's like, why fight battles? It's so funny. When you showed that Coco Loco, and I saw the photograph you showed on Instagram earlier, so I tried growing cocoa, and I grew distant drums. I grew those two varieties when I was growing, before the deer came and ate everything. And so, and if I were to go and do that again, I wouldn't grow cocoa. I know it's a very popular rose, but I got 10 stems of distant drums for every one Coco Loco. And if you're trying to make money as a farmer, I'm like, that's one of those things you just really want to look at.
And I think that's a really good point, because I think that, so it's funny, because that Coco Loco, we've gotten 2 stems of it, in this last month. And I think that there is I think the growers may be feeling some pressure from okay, I'm trying to sell to these florists, and what they're asking me for is the same thing they could get at the wholesaler. And so I feel like there's some pressure there, but I think you hit it right on the nose, is don't try to do that same thing. Don't try to just be, you can't compete with Ecuador. You can't compete with Colombia. You're not ever going to be able to grow roses like that. So just go with, the fragrant, delicate, beautiful varieties that grow in your region that nobody else has. I mean, that's definitely the way to go.
Well, and the only place I know, like Coco Loco, that you can get numbers of is on the West Coast. And with Coco Loco, you have shipping issues, you've got quality issues, not because they're bad, but just because of durability. But even then, they might have 1,000 plants and still not produce the volume that they are with other varieties. And of course, it's just in high demand. I want to just read a couple comments real quick. White Picket Flower says, the hybrid teas hold a lot longer than the Floribundas.
They do.
Great point. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
For me, if I pick with 3 to 5, calyxes are open. are in bud, then I guess that's the day length they're getting. Um, Somebody loves my shirt. Thank you. I have to thank my wife for all my fabulous flower shirts. She makes sure I'm always covered in petals. And so let's see here. The fact that you're willing to learn means so much to us. Oh, that's great. And that's really it. And that's true for everybody. And we just have to be encouraged by that.
Yeah.
There are so many. Okay, so and I always hate reading Instagram handles because I feel like I destroy people's names. Loud Farm, is that how
Oh, that's in
or
Virginia.
Lou Loud?
Well, I think
Okay,
it's Loud
says yes.
Larry.
There's okay. I'm always bad with this. Yes, there are so many types of roses in those color variations. Absolutely. Let's see, are they better plants? That's another question. Going back, the Coco Locos, the plants don't look nearly as strong to me as and robust as distant drums. And again, I'm only using those because
Sure.
those were some that I trialed, but there are some amazing roses out there.
Yeah.
Morgan is saying variety for your location is so, with lots of O's, important. Coco Loco is my rock star, and Distance Drums is on the naughty list. Oh, how fascinating. See, I mean,
Right.
it depends on where you're located.
Yes.
I'm really, thank you for helping me try to pronounce that. My bifocals aren't going to read that. So anyway, but okay, so getting back to, I think getting back to varieties to grow, when you're getting roses, are you getting numbers of certain varieties? Are you just getting a
Mm-mm.
buckets full of, just an assortment?
Just an
Okay.
assortment. It's
Wow.
just
Look at
a mix. Yeah, I mean, they're stunning, but they are, we're not ordering 6 bunches. First of all, we're not ordering anything. We have a unique situation with this grower. I'll just tell you that we have basically said we will, and we did this from year one, is that we said we will buy everything you grow so that you have a place, you have an outlet to um, allow yourself to get some money so that you can reinvest in new plants, but also B, so that you don't have to be stressed about, am I going to be able to sell these flowers? I don't know how to grow them. I don't know how to sell them. There's a lot of pieces. So we tried to just take that off of her plate and said, we'll just buy them all and you don't have to worry about that piece. And now into oh, Lauren's here. Hi. Um, Now in year 5, there is like I said, we're getting hundreds of stems a week where other florists now in our area are saying, oh, I want to buy from you. And we're able to say, okay, great. If there's other people that want to buy, we don't have to take them all. You can sell them to other people too. But we tried to just do that so that there was a little pressure off. So we're just getting a mixed variety. We're not ordering a certain color, a certain variety. We're just getting a mixed bucket. And clearly that is not how most florists are buying.
right.
I mean, they may say, I have a pink and white wedding. I mean, maybe they're flexible enough to say, I can just go by color. I don't need, a certain variety. But we are just trying to use all of the stems in all the ways that we can. And we have been using them in our subscription buckets, and our customers have really responded to them. And I think that part of the reason is because we spend so much time educating about that product. And people, I mean, frankly, one thing about marketing, I feel like, is when we're excited about something, our customers are excited too. And they might not even know why they're excited. They just know I'm excited. And
Right.
so they're like, oh, well, if you're excited about this, I want to be excited about it too. And then they get it and they're like, oh yeah, this is a special thing. And so, in all of what we do, we always feel like the farmer and us are on the same team. And we're all trying to get more local flowers in people's hands. And so if that means me, doing Instagram or blog posts or whatever about local roses, and then putting them out to our customers and saying, hey, customers, in your bucket this week are going to be local roses. They may not have like as long a base life, but look how beautiful they are. They're amazing. And then you really get that feedback that people really love them. So it's just a lot of education. It's a lot of telling the story, just over and over again, and being excited about it, you know, as a grower, as a florist, as a designer, and sharing that excitement, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I another comment, they are gray moody roses that are older varieties that do way better. And that's true. There are
Yeah.
possible older varieties that do way better. And that's something we should always and look at. I wish more florists did that. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like one thing that has happened,
Yeah.
that I'm glad about is because of like the Grace Rose Farms and the Rose
Yes.
Farms and I mean, different people that have been shipping them, they have
Yeah.
kind of helped create a demand
Totally.
for them more so,
Yes.
and also helped educate some people, not everybody
Yes.
by any means, because not everyone has had the need or market. But the other thing I think that I appreciate, which we may, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is they've also managed to raise that expected value or price,
Yes.
because now you're paying however much money you're paying plus shipping to get these, couple bunches of roses that have a
Yes.
short shelf life, but people value that or they want
Yeah.
that. And I feel like that's another
100%.
thing.
They have definitely, those West Coast growers have definitely elevated A, demand, and B, value. They have 100% set the tone for, and what a lot of our growers are saying is like, look, we know you love, you know, garden roses from the West Coast. We actually have a comparable product to that. We don't have a comparable product to South America, but we have a comparable product, and if you love that, you're going to love this too. And so they have kind of primed the pump for people to be, for designers to be excited about that garden rose style, and that is really exciting. I mean, they're definitely pioneers in that way, for the folks that are growing locally, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm pretty excited. I know I saw another question here. And a comment: garden roses are like expensive wine. You cherish and enjoy the moment you have with them. Absolutely.
And that's a great way. Tell your customers that. That's a great way to educate your customers, your florist customers, to say this is something special. This is not a commodity rose. This is not, buy 1,000 of them for 99 cents and put them in a huge arch. There's a place for that, but this isn't it. This is the special, just that, the expensive wine on your dinner table at your special anniversary dinner. Like, these are the special pieces.
Yeah, this is not box wine.
No, this is not box wine, for sure. One thing that came up that I thought was really interesting when I was talking to growers, we had this happen, and then Morgan also mentioned it to me. We have roses come on at the same time, so this is a timing issue, the same time as peonies. And peonies are so popular here that we sometimes have a little bit of a harder time getting people excited about roses, even though they're amazing, because they really are competing a little bit with peonies. And last year we even tried to work with Lauren to time the harvest, the start of the harvest, to be a little closer to the end of peony season, so that we had more of a sort of a progression, or we had something come after peonies rather than everything come on at once. And then
Right.
what Morgan said to me today is that he had an issue. He said he put his roses in with his Lysianthus this week. And he's like, I was even confused myself, because here these two products kind of look alike. Lysianthus does not have a fragrance. I'm telling people to make sure they smell the roses, but they look like the Lysianthus. And I also have to tell them that the roses are probably going to have to be pulled out after a few days, but the Lysianthus is going to last like 2 weeks. So you're also like, again, education, because you are going to be combining this very special product with a lot of other things.
Sure.
And so it was just, we were both having some timing issues. And, you know, I think that brings up a thing for farmers too. If you are offering a florist a rose at the same time that they can get a Lysianthus, maybe they don't, maybe the rose is not as appealing to them, because a Lysianthus does have a longer vase life. It's probably a little less expensive. It's probably not as pretty. It's not fragrant. But again, you know, if you're budget conscious, or you're like, I just need a thing that has this shape and size, Lysianthus might be the thing they choose. So I don't know how people, because depending on where you are, harvest time is going to be different. But those are two of the sort of timing issues that we have faced, peonies and Lysianthus, and kind of squeezing them in
Sure.
between there.
Well, and I think in a lot of ways, though, I know in customers that I've had that have used this kind of product, you know, it is totally the icing on the cake. You know, it's like
Yes.
a peony is that big, we'll call the money shot, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, Lysianthus is that graceful sort of, you know, beautiful bloom. I know, like this vase behind me, this is all
Yeah.
local Lysianthus,
Looks
and
beautiful.
it's already a week old, and I'm
Oh
really
my
stoked about it. I
gosh.
can't even tell. It's like I just got it yesterday. I mean, it's
They're
crazy.
amazing. Lysianthus are like an amazing flower.
Well, and then I think, you know, that garden rose is that special bloom that goes into that bouquet and adds that fragrance in a wedding
Oh yeah.
scenario, and gives that sort of little, you know, it's like Lily of the Valley. It gives you that sort
Yes.
of like unexpected, incredible surprise.
Yeah.
And people who are used to working with them, and that might be, you know, really trying to reach out to people like
Yeah.
who uses them already, and do a survey. That might be, you know, that might be a
That's a
good
great,
idea.
yeah.
If you've got customers you're already selling your local blooms to, throw out a survey. Do you use garden roses? What are your favorite varieties?
Yeah.
You know, like one
Or
of the
why don't
questions.
you? Like, what's the issue? What
Yeah,
what makes you not want to use them?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's a
exactly.
great idea.
And I think too, one of the questions I know when we were sharing notes today, well, you were sharing
Yeah.
notes with me. You know, one of the questions that was about bunching,
Yes.
and
I
do they
have
need
that
to?
question too. I don't know, because we have never bought them from anybody else. We just know how we get them. And so I don't know, right? I don't know. Should they be bunched? Do you take the thorns off? Like, how are they presented to a florist? I don't even know. We don't know. I don't know.
Well, I can share that. Like my experience with these growers is, you know, a lot of times they'll take the bottom third thorns off, but it's not a major ordeal. You know, like they'll
Uh-huh.
use like one of those really heavy sort of mesh wire gloves and
Yep.
just do it that way, because
Strip the
that way,
bottom.
right, it's already on your hand, and it protects your hand from the million thorns that are
Yes.
probably there. And my attitude is it's always better to put these kinds of flowers in that 10 stem bunch with the same variety
Yeah.
first, then go to color. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say you have assorted blushes, and you can sell that as sort of like an assorted blush bouquet of roses, then you can do that. Then anything goes at that point. It's kind
Right.
of like, you know, but I feel like if you can do those two things, you might have more market appeal to somebody doing a wedding, you know, because
Yes.
you can say, I have 5 bunches of this blush rose or pink rose or what, apricot colored rose.
Sure.
I don't know what your experience has been, but I almost, if it were me, I think white would be the last color I grew.
I don't, for us, we have really found that like the pinks and yellows have been like the really, and sort of peachy. Here, I'll show you one that I have, like these yellows. Um, You know,
Oh,
these are
there's,
like, this is like, you know, a pretty good sized stem. That's again maybe 12
yeah,
inches. And it's like you know, like a light yellow, and then there's like a
yeah,
little bit of a darker yellow. And I feel like those colors are really more unique. White to me, I mean, I don't know. There's so many issues with white. White hardly
right.
ever looks good. Like it's really hard to make it look good. And I feel like, I don't know, for us, we just don't have a lot of like classically white weddings anymore. Like people are going with more color. And so the more I think unique colors that you can have, I think the better. Because yeah, white would not be, yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
to me, it's just if I'm going to invest in expensive plant material and the time and the sweat equity, I,
Mm-hmm.
I I feel like white is going to be the most problematic color because it's not forgiving at all.
At all. No, I
At
mean,
all.
I don't know
And then
how
sometimes
anyone
it's
would.
not even, I hear this all the time. Well, it's not white enough.
Oh
Or
gosh.
it's, yeah, I'm like, seriously? I'm like, do you
I
understand what I practically gave birth to this thing
right.
and
And
it's
that's
not white enough.
right. And that is one of the things that a lot of the growers were saying is that um, they were feeling like florists didn't understand, and that this goes back to education too, what goes into bringing this bloom to market, because this is not, you know, this is not living on the equator with a perfect temperature and perfect lighting and perfect whatever. And it's not being grown with chemicals. It's not being grown, you know,
Right.
what goes into bringing a bloom like that to market is much more intense. I had a grower tell me that she is doing like FaceTime live from the field with the florist to show them, because she's like, look, this is how difficult this is. I am ignoring 10 flowers to get one flower for you because, you know, there's just so many issues. And again, you know, if I understood that, I'd be like, oh wow, that really is difficult. Like I should, you know, there's an appreciation that comes with understanding just how things are grown. We actually went to see Lauren's growing for the first time this year, and our whole team said when we walked away, like, we understand so much more now what it
Yeah.
takes to bring this to us. Like, so you know, if you can do, you know, videos, if you can do FaceTime live or Instagram lives, Facebook lives, any way that you can get the sort of story out there more to show like this is what it takes. I think that would be helpful.
Well, and on top of that is like, then they flush. And if you grow the right varieties, you might get some sporadic blooming in another 6 to 8 weeks,
Yeah.
or you might get a fall flush again. So again, like perennials and some of these other crops, it's like you don't always, you don't get the continual bloom.
Yes.
You don't pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I've seen a couple questions. One here is, on average, how many stems do growers get per rose bush? I don't know.
I don't
I do know
know.
it depends on the variety. It depends on the
Yes.
variety. And is it happy? Because if it's happy, it's going to bloom more. Also,
Sure.
if you keep cutting, if you can keep the stems cut, the plant, the plant thinks, oh my gosh, I still have to reproduce, so I'm going to throw
Right.
more buds out.
Right.
And that is a big part of that. We did have a question up here, and I think this is from a friend of mine from Atlanta, Dawn. I was talking about buckets. How many stems do you put into your monthly subscription?
Oh,
Is that what you do, is a monthly subscription with your buckets?
so we actually have we do have a bucket subscription, and we have different price ranges and sizes. So they start at $45, and that's for about 20 stems. So then
Okay.
it just goes up from there. And there's just a variety of whatever the growers have that week. And we offer a DIY bucket or a wrapped bouquet or a vase arrangement for our subscription. So you can get, you know, whatever works best for you. Some people like to do their own design. Some people just want us to design it for them.
Sure. Well, if you've just joined us here in the last 10 minutes or so, we are talking with Ellen today, Ellen Frost, about just sort of having a conversation with everything going on in Ecuador. We're talking about roses, local roses. How do we work with growers to figure that part out? How do we help them? If you are a grower, just kind of giving some feedback and perspective from a reseller standpoint, or
Right.
in Ellen's case, an actual floor standpoint. I love Lauren's response to the question about how many did each plant produce. Anywhere from 1 to 100. So I mean, it's as different as the number of
Right.
plants you grow, probably. This is also another good statement. Is I actually stopped allowing the roses to bloom during the summer. You know, the summer, like right now, we're really slow.
Yeah.
Are you slow right now this
Yes.
time of year, or?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
just starting the
So
last 2 weeks and then slow through the summer.
yeah, and we're slow probably for about another 2.5 weeks. Well, probably the third week in July, things will start finding
Ramping
their
up
way out
again.
of the yeah. Well, and I think that's a brilliant idea, is deadheading the roses to kind of put that energy back into the plant. So
Yes.
that way, when you let go for the fall, when things cool off a little bit and they're happier, you know, maybe you get that second flush of flowers.
Oh yeah,
I think,
and Lauren just let us know, I guess like a week or two ago, she said the roses are going on vacation for the summer. So they're getting maintenance and then they'll be back again in the fall. So yeah, that's great timing for us. Like we're slow in the summer and we're ready to have fall weddings again. So that's great. And
sure.
that I think is good to understand like what your florist needs are too. You know, like if you're Julio from the flower hat and you're super busy in the summer, then you know you have different needs because you're in a tourist location, you know, like and you're slow when I'm busy. So understanding the needs of your florist is important too.
Absolutely. Yeah, she commented and said that flushes in the spring and fall, and also you miss a lot of the crazy pests. You know, and there are so many benefits to that. I mean, there are other crops that are the same way.
Oh yeah.
That just by tweaking the maintenance, you can miss some of those windows of bug pressure and issues,
Definitely.
challenges that come with it. So,
Yeah.
you know, this was a great question, and I'm curious what your feedback is on this that you gave me about. Are people wanting these for vases or for bouquets? What have you heard?
We are seeing mostly for bouquet work and mostly for wedding bouquet work. So, you know, using them as like really specialty products. Or, you know, if there's, I don't know, a focal piece that's going to be on like the bride's table or something, you know, but really for just those special places. And for us our using them in bouquets this last spring, I would say has really it's really changed our designs a lot. Like we just never have had them. And when I look at pictures of the designs that have them in them, I'm just like amazed. They're so beautiful. And I'm, you know, because we don't have them ever otherwise, they're even more special. But they are really, yeah, in bridal bouquet work, they are really fabulous. And we're also using them in like personal flowers, like boutonnieres, head crowns, like the buds and like the unopened ones. And those have been awesome. They've been like, we've been using them almost for all of our boutonnieres recently because they, like on those branches, on those branchy ones, you have like one big bloom, but then you have like 4 or 5 buds, and those are great for head crowns and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. We're talking about roses, garden roses. I have Lysianthus behind me. That's where I was talking about that earlier. Question. I'm glad you said that because I know a lot of times I've been scared to use like those really tight buds and things. And scared's not the right word, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of like probably haven't associated them with the opportunity they do present themselves with. So anyway, I
They
think
were,
that's a good
yeah, they
suggestion.
were great. And we, you know, we're trying to get, especially for like those branchy ones, we're trying to get them, we're trying to use them all. We're trying to use every piece of it that we can. And so, you know, if we can use it in boutonnieres or head crowns or something, yeah, it's been great.
Well, and I feel like too, it also goes back to this question. It goes back to who's your customer. You know, if
Mm-hmm.
your customer is an individual consumer, then they might be buying them to put in a vase.
Yes, for
Um,
sure.
right. You know, as opposed to a wedding florist that might be really trying to like you just described, use it for that special bouquet or
Special,
moment.
right. Yeah, for
Sure.
sure.
Um, uh, it's interesting. I don't really. There's one question about how distinguishing. Uh, like, do customers really care about the form or? I mean, I think the fragrance is a big seller, but
Yes.
exactly what kind it is, I'm not sure. I mean, do you feel like you hear any kind
No.
of? Yeah,
Our customers don't know. I mean, most people don't know, different rose varieties. I mean, normal people. Um, so no, I don't. We don't. Our customers, our end users, they are attracted to the scent and, color and just like the general look of them. They're not saying like, is a hybrid tea rose shape not totally open better than a garden rose totally open? Nobody is looking at, I mean, nobody is telling me that they care about those things. They are excited to have the fragrance and to have the color. And I mean, one of the things, I mean, I always think like there is um there is some scent memory that we all have, right? And roses are one of those flowers that bring back a lot of scent memory, especially these old garden roses. Lots of people have memories of their grandmother's gardens or their mother's gardens or gardens that they spent time in, and smelling it again today, brings us back to those times. And so I think that's part of what people are loving about them. They're just loving the sort of nostalgic memory that that scent brings up for them. And it could even be like it reminds them of their wedding flowers or, a trip they took to the West Coast or whatever. But I
time
think
of year.
scent, yes, I think scent is definitely a big draw on these roses because we always have people say like, like how come how come roses in the grocery store don't smell anymore? The first thing I do when I see them is I smell them and they don't smell like anything. And so being able to explain why these still have scent, why other roses don't have scent, and why these are like so special. I think people are really responding to the scent a lot.
Sure. I think that's a
Yeah.
great point. I love the whole memory idea. Also, there's been a couple comments about the really short stems and trying to market those to bakers, bakeries,
Yes.
because they don't need the stem length with doing cake decorating and design. And I would also say that if you are trying to produce this product with organic practices, I'll say
Mm-hmm.
that I've always felt weird about that. I'm always like, you've just gotten this, we haven't even touched on this, but you've just gotten this product in from South America, and who knows what chemicals on it, right?
Covered. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, and I mean, I know that not every, I mean, I know that in theory they're not supposed to be like that, but just let's be real here. And
Sure.
so, but if you're doing that, that might be uh,
Yes.
a real selling point to somebody who cares about
Totally.
putting on their food. So,
Absolutely. I know Lauren, I keep bringing her up because we just spend a lot of our time together, has a great partnership with a local bakery where she does sell, shorties or heads to them. And they're called, if anybody wants to look, their cakes are amazing, Bramble Baking. And they use all local flowers on their cakes. They use tons of these roses and they are like spectacular. They're just such a unique product. And these aren't even, I mean, they do wedding cakes, but these are just cakes for special occasions that they use local flowers on, and they're really special.
wow. And the suggestion about confetti, like the petals and things
Oh,
like that,
yes. Yes,
that's
yes.
fun. And it's still fragrant. So, I mean, even
Mm-hmm.
then. But I do want to say one thing though. I think when we were talking about like varieties to grow, I know some of the varieties open up and have maybe only, and I'm going to get this wrong, so someone will correct me, but 5 or 6 petals on them at a
Yeah.
time. And I feel like those do not have the shelf life. I mean, if we're going to talk about shelf life, those are even shorter, which some people can still work with that and still want that.
Yeah.
Turn that
So
around
these
because,
are
yeah,
like these single, Lauren can tell me what this is, but these are like single, open like totally different than those like multi-petaled, fluffy, you can see the difference, right? Like one
Uh,
is just a totally open variety. And you're right, they don't have, they definitely are more delicate and have, less of a vase life. I mean, they're beautiful and they're super fragrant, but they are, again, an also different product.
right.
Yes.
Well, and that's truly a day of. You keep it
Mm-hmm.
in your cooler. If you know that's the variety that it is, you keep it in the cooler as long as possible.
Yes.
At the very last minute, you put it in because within 12 hours it's going to be
Oh,
wide
it's
open.
going to be,
It's going to be
yeah.
glorious, but you know,
Short.
yeah, I think with all the comments too that I know you shared with me today, one of the things I just wanted to talk about was um, temperature to hold them at. Some people I think feel
Yes.
like they can't take the cold because they're so delicate.
I would love to know more about this.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about it.
I would
Our
say,
our cooler runs at 43, so that's what we keep them in.
okay, and I think 43 is great. I think that don't be afraid to put them in the cooler.
Yes.
I would say, like the lowest I ever like to go in my coolers is 38, 39 degrees.
Yeah.
And not that they couldn't go to 36, but I have trust issues, Ellen. I just
Me
got to be
too.
here.
Me
And
too. I
I
am
know
like,
that some, go
I
ahead.
don't want to risk it. I don't want to risk it. Mm-mm.
Well, I'm like, I don't, all it takes is a little malfunction. And for that
Yep.
thermostat to kick on and to go below freezing, and then you have mush or something like that.
Oh,
I got issues. So I always
me
like
too.
40 around that 39, 40, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have a cooler, and let's say you use a refrigerator, I would say you have to really be careful because there can be cold
Yes.
spots in there. And
Frozen
if
spots.
right, and if they touch the
Yeah.
sides of the refrigerator, some things will freeze or get too
Yeah.
cold there too. So you just want to be careful with some of that. But yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I don't have any problem going down cold. They look so delicate, but it does slow down some things.
Yeah.
I know there's some comments in here that have been popping in since I raged about my trust issues. Yes, everybody. So thank you for the shirt comments. That's my wife's doing, and I need to get I need to sign something on with Belks or whoever they come from.
Yes.
So that way I can market that. I'll be a new flower shirt guy, model,
Yep.
whatever. So okay, so that variety, and I'm probably going to destroy. It looks like Lauren did put it in here. It looks French, which scares me. But I'm going to say I'm something de champagne. So there you go. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm not going to make any bigger fool of me than that. But anyway, it's a summer version of the Iceland poppy. Absolutely. It does look like a poppy.
Yes.
I love that. There are varieties that ball up in the cold. That's interesting. So I'm curious if they ball up in the cold. That's obviously a temporary thing, I would think, and because they're just going to reopen up as soon as they
Right.
warm up. Growers need to be experimenting with any variety. Grow and educate the florists. Absolutely, they need to do that. I completely agree. And that's what we're talking about here now.
Yes.
So that way we can all learn a little bit more about local roses and how to either promote them and market them. I'm
Yep.
curious. I've got we have some people on here. If you have grown roses and you have a favorite variety that is, we'll just say the moneymaker, I'd love to have you put that in the
Yeah.
description down below because Ellen and I will take notes. Well, I'll take notes. I won't make
Yes.
Ellen do that. And we will share some of those as we continue to do that because I feel like if I'm a florist, I want to know the names of those varieties and vice versa. Since they ball up and unfortunately don't open. Oh, well, that's sad.
Oh.
I've never had that experience, but I know that maybe varieties. Yeah, it depends on the variety, is what she just
Right.
said. Um, sorry, I'm trying to read. If you keep them so cold, won't it make them falter once brought out at room temperature? I think that does depend on a few things. Sorry, let me cancel that. one thing that I've noticed with poppies and some other things is that if you go from super cold to super warm, like you're in a warehouse that's not doesn't have AC and things, sometimes condensation can build up inside where they sweat and then they would rot. This is only a situation I think that I would do if I knew, like, for example, I'm pulling it out on a Friday for a Saturday event. I'm not talking about, like permanent, like long-term storage here by any means.
Right.
We're getting some, okay, so we're getting some names here. Soul Sister. Okay, I'm going to read them and I'll let you write them down. Can you do that for me, Ellen?
Yep.
Okay, there's some great names in here. People are sharing. Thank you guys for sharing this. Okay, so if I'm wrong about any of these, please correct me. Just Joey is a name. Francis Milan. Yes, the whole Milan family is great. Soul Sister. Star of the Republic. I mean, some of these names. I mean, sometimes people are like, where do they come up with these names? And I tell people, you know what? When you spend a decade trying to come up with a new rose variety, you can pick whatever crazy name you want.
Exactly.
Earth Angel is another one. And I'm probably going to destroy this one. Desdemona.
Okay.
Is that a song? I'm not sure. But there's a few names there. And so I just want to encourage people, go, like I said earlier, go to your botanical gardens or ask local rosarians what varieties are really good for you. I know we've been chatting for a while, and I know you and me, we can chat for a long time. I want to make sure that we take a second and talk about your new course that just released. Through Gardener's Workshop, because it's one of those evergreen, like, mini courses.
Yes, I'm so excited for it because, yes, it is evergreen, which means you can buy it today, take it today, buy it next week, take it next week. It's a short little class. It's less than 2 hours, and it is called Preparing to Sell to Florists. And it really covers 3 very specific things that are questions that I get all the time. So, how to find the right florist customer for you, because all florists are not the same. All farmers are not the same. And then pricing strategy, and then how to make a really great availability list. So it's just these 3 things, 3 topics that I get questions all the time for. And it really is a way to set a grower up for success when trying to reach out to a florist, and really to raise their confidence level going into try to make the sale, because that can be a difficult thing to do. So I'm trying to just like get people as prepared as they can to reach out to a new florist. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. We've had really good feedback from it so far. And I think if you buy, it's $50 or $49.95. So it's like really reasonably priced. And if you buy it before the 4th of July, I think you get access to a live Q&A that we're going to do at the end of July. So if anybody's thinking about it, July 4th is maybe a deadline to join the Q&A. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. We've had really good feedback, and it's a good complement. I do the other, I have another class with the Gardener's Workshop called Growing Your Business with Local Flower Sourcing, which is really geared at florists and farmer florists and designers. And this is kind of the flip side, giving farmers a little more concrete information about how to approach a florist. So yeah, I'm really excited about both of them.
Well, I know that it's so funny because when people look at the title of your course, sometimes it's like, is it for flower farmers? Is it for florists? You have done an unbelievable job of bringing those 2 worlds together through your business. And I feel like it's just, it's something that you're sharing all your experience through that.
Thank you.
And it's so worth it.
And
so that's why I was excited to hear this mini course that is being offered now.
Yeah.
So I haven't, y'all, I talk to flower farmers now more than ever. Mm-hmm. And I would say I hear nothing but great things about all of Lisa's courses. and Ellen is one of the many great instructors that are in her program. So I'm just glad that she's been on the podcast too. So if you want to listen to our episode,
Yes.
you can find it on our website or on any of the platforms. So that's an awesome episode. Is there anything else we need to cover when it comes to roses and florists? I just want to make sure we didn't leave something. I know we kind of touched on everything, I felt like, but I don't want to miss anything.
I think that's great. I think one thing I thought of today before, sort of as an ending or maybe a beginning, is that, and Lauren and Morgan and I sort of talked about it a little bit too, is that maybe we should do a rose grower, rose user Zoom get together so that people can meet each other, share resources. Like our local growers are now buying their roses together in, joint orders, or they are, so I think that if we had like some kind of Zoom meetup, that people would be able to say like, oh, there's people in my region, or there's people who are in my same zone and they're growing these kind of things. Just a way to sort of connect people more, because it is like such a specialty thing. It's not, it's not everybody's growing dahlias. You can, roses are just like a thing that not a lot of people are growing. So trying to connect people a little bit more. So maybe that'll be in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a great idea, especially, I know that as we discover new people who are inspired to grow roses, being able to kind of help each other build that, it's so sad when you think about historically the amount of roses that used to be produced here in the States. And that's a whole story for another day.
Yes. But it is terribly sad, and it's, I think, equally exciting that people are trying to bring roses back in our area.
Absolutely. And I'm really stoked about that. So
me too.
All right, Ellen. Well, if you guys, I want to make sure, because Lauren was so sweet. She mentioned on here that if anybody wanted to DM her questions, she was willing.
She's awesome. Let me tell you, she loves to talk about roses more than any person in the whole world. And she will answer all your questions as best she can. She's just great. So, of course, she offered to answer questions.
So, it's kind of scrolled up. Well, I don't remember her Instagram handle.
It's Floor by 8. So it's FLOR with the letter X and then the word 8, EIGHT. So it's a play on a 4 by 8 box, a 4 by 8 raised bed, but it's Floor by 8. So yeah, Floor by 8, Lauren. And if you can't find her, you can find me and I'll connect you to her.
Sure. All right. Well, Ellen, as always, it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was so great talking.
I know. And so we're going to share this if Instagram allows us to be on the Flower Podcast page. And if you just joined us, you can go back and watch the entire chat about local roses and how we need to bring them back. So we're excited about that. Anyway, till next time. Thank you so much, Ellen.
Thanks, Scott. Bye, everyone.